Hello! Today we are going to talk about the core concepts in pitch and what exactly you can talk about if you're doing your HSC oral exams and they ask you a question about pitch. Let's look into it. Pitch refers to the high and low qualities of sound and their combinations. This could be specific to individual instruments or a combination of a whole bunch of instruments to contribute to the overall pitch of a song. The first key idea when we're talking about pitch is melody. Melodies are lines that carry interest in a song. These could be instrumental melodies, or they could be sung vocal lines with lyrics. They can have counter melodies, they can be solo, or they can have harmonies. The first questions we ask are the notes high or low? What register do they sit in? And which instruments are playing those melodies? Melodies can come as motifs. That means that there are repeating melodic ideas that you can easily identify. These repeating ideas may also be varied or developed using motivic development or motivic variation. You can also talk about the movement of a melody. Does the melody you're listening to predominantly have ascending lines, descending lines, stay fairly static? Is there perhaps a melody that's moving around fairly rapidly while there's a counter melody or harmony staying static underneath or above? Is the melody moving in steps, that is a conjunct melody, or moving in leaps, like a disjunct melody? Is it static or constantly moving? Is it outlining chord tones like arpeggios? Is it scalic and outlining the steps in a scale? Or is it chromatic, that is moving in semitones? These melodies can also be diatonic, meaning consistent to one key, or non-diatonic. So perhaps you have a song in C major and you have a melody that is singing non-diatonic notes like an E flat rather than an E, or a B flat rather than a B. Is the melody consonant, meaning the notes sit neatly together, or dissonant with notes that clash against each other? You can also talk about harmony. Harmonies support melody and fill out the harmonic language of a song. Again, start by identifying which instruments, which parts are supplying the harmonies. You might have a lead vocal singing the melody and backing vocals harmonizing. They can be major, minor, or modal. Same with any melody. Harmonies can be voiced as chords by certain specific instruments, like if you've got a guitar playing chords. But in some genres, they can be shared between instruments. So think about orchestras with multiple instruments contributing to the harmonic language of the song. You may also be able to identify the quality of chords, whether they're major, minor, diminished, augmented, extended as sevenths, ninths, elevenths, or if there are non-diatonic chords that are perhaps borrowed from a different key, you can also put that in there. You may also be able to transcribe some of the chord progressions. So if you're able to hear perhaps a 2-5-1 progression, you can write that down as a 2-5-1 in this section of the song. You may also be able to hear a cadence. For example, if you've got an authentic cadence, a 5 chord to a 1 chord, you could put that in there. A deceptive cadence, a 5 to a 6, a plagal cadence, a 4 to a 1, whatever you can track down, it's worth putting in there. If you've got specific instruments or vocal parts that are harmonizing with the main melody, you might be able to identify the intervals in those harmonies. So for example, if you've got a lead vocal line and then a harmony stacked on top that's singing a major third above, you can put that in. And similarly with melody, in harmony, you can also talk about diatonic, non-diatonic, consonants, or dissonance in the harmony. You can also talk about the tonality of the piece. We mentioned this sort of in harmony, but you can talk about the overall key signature, that being a major, a minor, a mode, whatever you can track down. Maybe there's modulations or tonal shifts that you can identify. Even if you can't identify what exactly the keys are, you can still identify that there is a modulation, that is a key change, or a modal shift. So a modulation or a key change is a shift from one tonal center to another. These could be brief, So perhaps it's for one section of a song, or even less, perhaps it's only for a few bars before it changes again. Or this might be a sustained change that lasts until the end of the piece. And again, even if you can't hear exactly what tonal centers it's changing between, you can still talk about the changes itself. So you can say that there is a modulation, there is a key change at this point in the song. And you might even be able to figure out the interval. So even if you don't know where it's coming from or where it's going to, you might be able to hear that it's moving up a tone, or up a third, up a fifth, whatever it's moving. There may also be parallel borrowing. That is stealing chords from different keys. You may also be able to identify atonality, which is songs that don't have a key signature or a tonal center. Atonal means no tonal center. These often sound pretty chaotic or dissonant. If you know your modes, you may be able to identify if a song is in Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Locrian, or Ionian, which is standard major, or Aeolian, which is natural minor. You might also be able to identify some different scales in there. So we've talked about major and minor. There can be songs that have repeating ideas based on pentatonic scales, either major or minor or blues. You can also talk about sequences, which are repeating melodic ideas that change in pitch, so either moved higher or lower. You can talk about themes, which are similar to motifs, but larger scale things. They're usually symbolic of something specific and take up a larger section of the song than a motif. You can also talk about the range of instruments, that is the highest and lowest that they could go. So you might have a song with a vocal part in falsetto, which you can talk about being the highest part of their register, or you might have a double bass that's bowing on a low E, that being the lowest note of their register. You can talk about drones, which are long held notes, usually in bass lines, but they can be present in other parts as well. You can also talk about pedal points, which are similar to drones in that they are one note that's held consistently, and they usually change from being chord tones to non-chord tones. So you might have a sustained note that starts off as being part of the chord, but then as it's sustained and the chords shift around it, it becomes a non-chord tone. And these sort of create like a nice dissonance and a bit of harmonic variation in there. You can also talk about riffs, which are short repeated phrases. Typically these are referred to as like guitar riffs or licks in pop songs. Those are some of the main ideas that you can talk about when you're looking at pitch and you've got a question on pitch. And again, the most important thing is say it. Say what you think. Even if it seems blindingly obvious that the song is in a major key, say it. You won't regret it. Please let me know if you've got any questions at all, and I will catch you next time.